everyone, and welcome to our very first episode for Chosen and Precious. This is going to be our book review podcast series. So, welcome. We're very excited to have you, and a huge thank you to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please be sure to hit the thumbs up and also subscribe so you can see when we pick up our next book review. But just a quick introduction, my name is Melissa.
Hi, my name's Carrie.
Thank you again for joining us. We do want to go ahead, get right into it, make this easy for you guys to follow along. With that, let's get started. So one of the main reasons we wanted to start with Ginger's book is it's out there in social media right now. She's making her media plugs for it, really popular. And I was a fan of the show, and I know you hadn't seen it. So it was going to be something new and interesting for you. And I know we were going to take a different approach to it, being that I kind of knew her family's faith, I knew her story, and for you, you were just kind of new to who she was.
Yeah, I heard of the family because they were very popular. Heard of the show. You talked a lot about the show. I think I watched one episode. I just, I didn't like it mainly because of the rules, the dress, the women's dress that really turned me off to how they had to wear skirts all the time. It really,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
didn't get into it.
with us diving into the book in our first series, we're only going to cover the first 4 chapters of the book. And in the first 4 chapters of the book, she does address how they were expected to dress. And she has come to the realization so far, and we're only 4 chapters in, that there isn't anything in this Bible specifically about how you are to dress. It does indicate, like she says, to be modest. But that doesn't mean, modesty doesn't mean you just have to be in skirts.
Right.
So, and we can kind of see as she lives out her life a little bit still in the public eye, that they're kind of thriving on the excitement of her evolution. Like, she's just dressing it like the average woman would dress if you're going into the office, if you're going anywhere, so
Right.
I think it appeals to people's desire of wanting, in a sense, the way things used to be almost. But yeah,
Okay.
so I'd been a huge fan of the show.
Before we move on to the actual book, I wanted to kind of
Yeah,
just
let's cut
talk
back.
about the cover here, because I thought, and I looked this up, like what people thought of her cover, and there was a lot of critique about how she looks sad. I didn't get that from this. I like it because I like it looks so contemporary. Like, she took the picture maybe in California. It looks so contemporary. I love this pants. And she just looks like this confident, professional woman. That's how, and I noticed the black nail polish. And I don't know, I didn't look this up, but I know a lot of those movements that, required women to dress, conservative, usually nail polish or black nail polish was just forbidden. It was like the dark side. You crossed over. So I just noticed that. And I thought, did she do that deliberately? I don't know, but I like the cover. I really did. That's just kind of what I wanted to talk about. I thought, to me, this spoke and I knew the message, being a Christian, I understood what was going on with this and what I was probably going to read about. It made sense to me.
So interesting that you call that out, because you know how you'll do different, and a lot of women will do this. That, I mean, they're choosing the nail color for the season, and for the fall, you'll always see the dark ambers, and I've even done black. But I do think that was considered in her when she was getting ready to shoot for that, to put forth an image that's powerful, strong, serious, probably, all of those things. So yeah, that was a good call out. And I like, just to really, like you said, kind of get back to the book itself. The cover is appealing. The title, like you mentioned, really speaks for what this book is about in it. And so far in the first 4 chapters, she's stuck to that message and hasn't really veered off. It is really just rooted in going to be her faith experience. It's not a tell-all book about her family and drama and things that had gone so far, anyways, at the beginning of the book. That's not something I think she does express that that's not my intent of this book, and probably not
Right.
the intent that she'll ever have.
Right. Yeah.
That,
She did state that in the book. This is not a,
yeah,
to talk about her parents and she did express like she had a great childhood. So
yeah.
I thought, wow, that's really
Um,
good.
that's what I wanted to mention to you is that I was so glad that she did express that she had a wonderful childhood, that
Hmm.
she expressed how much her parents sacrificed for her. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the social media wants to kind of tear that family apart as much as they can.
Yeah.
And let's, pin them against each other. And
Hmm.
she never, and I really appreciate that. I was really kind of like, is she going to just tear down her parents completely because of the faith that they have and um, the situations or how that impacted her growing up.
Hmm.
And I was really thinking, like, oh gosh, I hope that's not the case here, because you can see when I watch the episodes, there was a lot of love there. There was a lot. I mean, you can't have that many kids and not be completely devoted, and her parents definitely, and I know it's television, appeared to be that.
Right.
um so I was
Yeah.
really glad she talked on that.
Yeah. And, I was surprised at how many television shows they had. I didn't know. I mean, I knew the Duggar show, but she talked about, the several other shows. Did you watch any of these other ones? These spin-offs to the?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I was a fan. Another thing I found really interesting, and I wanted to ask you about it, is she mentioned that she doesn't even like being the center of attention. Was that kind of surprising for you to read?
Yeah, I thought that, growing up the way she did on television all the time, and then even when she talked about, the show's ending, and I mean, it was her majority of her life is being recorded. As a child, she didn't have much say in it, but I think she, even now, as was older, she did some television series with her husband. So yeah, I did find that surprising that, okay, yeah, maybe she didn't like a lot of the attention. Um, and it's just way of life. She grew up this way. This is how you survive almost. Like this
Yeah.
is what we
Yeah.
do to work in a
That's
way.
what, yeah, I agree. I kind of thought it a little bit surprising that she did say she doesn't like the to be the center of attention, but yeah, once you are thrown into that line of work, that is, especially already having the fame and followers that she has,
Yeah.
um, that does kind of put her into pin you into a certain line of work
Mhm.
going forward. So
Right.
a lot of her, even though she mentioned she partnered with a professional writer who's also Christian and knows biblical accuracy, she said it better than herself. I found the book so far extremely easy to read and follow through, and just enjoyable. I pick up the book in the evening after the kids are in bed, and it's an easy, quick read. She had
Yeah.
put funny stories in there. That the story of meeting President Bill Clinton.
Oh, yes, I
I,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, so you can imagine that even though the faith that her parents had and then the fame that exposed them to, she was um exposed to so much more than the average
That's what I thought
child.
too,
And
is in
yeah,
the chapter, that first chapter, it's called growing up in a fishbowl, which in a sense, okay, she's traveling to New York, Chicago, London. She's meeting all these famous people. Like it's not a typical experience. I thought it was kind of interesting. I kind of get it, but then, and maybe that's even helped her to realize and think about things a little bit differently because of those experiences going to these big cities, versus somebody in this type of movement, never getting outside that and seeing other things. Maybe you would stay locked in to it.
Yeah. I think you're right on point there. And those are part of the episodes that I enjoyed the most, was seeing how this rural family going to big cities, and they would get questioned a lot, like, are these kids, are they being exposed to enough? And if you watch the show, and it seems like she had also attest to that in talking about her traveling, but they not only had a solid education, but they just got to meet a lot of people. And, I'm sure anytime you're on set, you're being interviewed, we're exposed to even a level of maturity that a lot of young teens don't have.
Yeah.
So yeah, to all of that, just to say, I'm so glad she touches on a lot of the positive aspects of how rooted and close her family was, even though it was large, how tight knit it was, and all the fun childhood memories.
Yeah, she had, I mean, there's some really good stuff, just, memorizing the Bible. I think there's one camp she went to where she memorized, I think it was the book of James. So there was like some very positive stuff that she was learning, even though there may be, things that weren't helpful, were added on top of the gospel. Because I think the intent of their family is to bring glory to God. But yet this movement that they're involved in, I think, has brought in this element of legalism. And that's where she gets into this, what did she call it? That detangling, is that how she said it?
Yeah.
Versus,
instead of deconstruction.
You're right. And you're reading through it and you're saying, oh yeah, there's some truth in these movements. There's like, yeah, that's a good thing. But if your main objective is just to do these things, to kind of follow the rules, to without a true understanding of what God has done for you, and the heart mode, your own heart motive to want to pursue this, I think it falls short. And I know that when she talks about Joshua Harris and how he ends up leaving the faith and ending his marriage, it's like, okay, now he's trying to like give back in his own way, where he's doing these podcasts where he's helping people unlearn some of this stuff because he's caused some damage. And I think there was some damage that movement caused, rightly so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the point too of her bringing that up is how all of that's rooted in legalism, like you said. She dived deep, just even into that first chapter. There's short chapters, so they're easy to read through, but covers a lot of content. In chapter 2, where she brought up that, and just kind of segueing away from the false message and teachings that she had been exposed to, but in covering some more personal aspects that I thought I was surprised to hear her mention, that she did talk about having an eating disorder. From watching the show, her mom expressed that was something that she struggled with as a young teen. And I was kind of surprised to hear her mention that. And she goes in further, talking about a lot of the fears that she has, or even had. and so there was a lot of elements of just natural fears and then spiritual fears, like she wasn't seeking God enough. She wasn't
Oh,
seeking
yeah.
God in all of her activities. And so she was always constantly worried, am I
Yeah. Yep.
pleasing God enough? So all of that to me was it kept me hooked. I kept wanting to read. Where did these originate from? Why was she so fearful? And you wouldn't expect somebody who grew up in such a faith-based home to admit to having so much fear. Was that
Mhm.
any of that surprising to you, or?
No, it wasn't surprising. Um, I thought when I, read about it, I thought, yeah, you feel a lot of that when you're kind of, new in the faith. I remember times even almost feeling this way when you're, oh, should I be reading my Bible instead of doing this? Should I, and that was some of her feelings she expressed, like just, should I have fun? Should I enjoy myself? Or how much time should I be putting into my spiritual activities? So
Yeah.
I could really relate to what these fears, about her new faith. Cause I know she said she called out to God when she was 14. And cause she kind of, you grow up, I can imagine you grow up in a Christian home and you play the part. And then
Mhm.
it seemed like she had this realization. She didn't want to, she just felt like it wasn't real.
She may not be, even though hers was more faith-based. I think as a teenager and reaching that age, how many other teenagers feel that way at that age? So it might just have been to a point of adolescence of a people pleasing. Um, she said that she had that attitude of wanting to be a people pleaser, and as a young teen, a lot of teens have that, and they don't realize that even when they're seeking like popularity, even that is people pleasing. If you
Mhm.
want to be in with the in crowd and be one of the popular kids, a lot of that is people pleasing. And so I think maybe even some of those questions are a lot of questions any teenager might have,
Yeah.
in finding yourself. So I think all of that is a lot of just her journey of finding out who she
Yep.
is. And it was really good for anybody, I think, to question, when you grow up, who am I? What is my role in this family? What is my role in society?
I think they would, you know, find it very interesting. Even maybe people that followed Bill Gothard or went to his
Yeah.
seminars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she talked a lot about Bill Gothard and his impact, you know, on her faith or on her beliefs and the belief
Yeah.
system and the principles. Have you ever you remember Bill
Yes.
Gothard, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
I mean, you remember we went to his seminar.
did we?
We
I
did.
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
we
I didn't
did.
know
You
that.
did. You you were young. We went, grandma took us there 2 summers in a row. It was in Baptist Church in Orlando. We went all dressed up and got the red
Oh
book,
my
said the
gosh.
life
That's
principles. Yeah. I
that is
had the book before I moved.
oh,
He
that's
wasn't
wild.
there. His seminars, he would record and then they would just play his recording there. Yeah.
Oh,
So I remember the
weird.
principles and the impact it
Okay.
had, even though we didn't grow up in really a Christian home, but our grandparents being Christian, anytime we visit them, they would try to,
Yeah.
take us to seminars, take us to church. So I remember very well these principles that she
And
speaks about.
yeah, they're enticing. So, if you haven't heard of the basic life principles, basically it is regarding fulfillment, inner peace, clear conscience, genuine joy, true security, moral purity, and all of those things leading to a successful life. So, it's enticing for a lot of people who doesn't want to have an inner peace, who doesn't want to have a clear conscience? And it is all enticing, and that's why he would have stadiums full. I didn't even realize that at one
Yeah, he
point we
was
were
really popular.
those people.
Well, he
Uh,
was a very charismatic. When I remember when he spoke, it was very charismatic. And a lot of the stuff, it was based on this, like she talks about this reaping, sowing what you reap. You do these, you do this, you get this result. You
yeah,
follow these principles, you'll have success. And I think that, somebody that's, not a believer, it would compel you to follow these rules. Oh,
yeah,
I can be successful. And she
yeah,
talked about the vows that he would have you give. And he did that in the seminar we went to. He talked about Psalms and how, he started memorizing the book of Psalms, and he realized he did this, he became smarter, he got better grades. And me being a young teenager, I was like, I want to get better grades. I need to
yeah,
memorize Psalms. I got to chapter 2, Psalms chapter 2, and that's all I got memorized. But so it was very impactful. And
yeah,
it's just such a burden to carry, as I felt when I read the book, like, oh, this is so heavy, such a burden to like follow these
yeah,
principles. Jeez.
yes. Yeah, and I'm really excited to finish the book and see how it all. She really wraps up how a true Christian faith isn't wrapped up in burdensome rules and things that any guilt or things that we're supposed to carry and be burdensome, and how to really become free from that. Another thing she touches on was a little that she highlighted on was the courtship experience that her and her husband had. I know watching the show that I got to see their courtship experience. What are your general thoughts, though, on that? Not seeing the show, but just generally, um, do you think that that was something that instituted by her parents was healthy? Um, or we both have kids, and it's something that we have to consider as they grow up. How much of an influence are we as parents in their relationships?
Yeah, I think that when I read it, I thought, oh, being a mom, it's like I want to put some boundaries. I don't want to call it restrictions per se, but maybe boundaries around my kids to help them navigate that dating time and protecting them.
Yeah,
So I think that some of them, yeah, there's probably some good principles, there's some things to take from that. But it can also, it seemed a little extreme, some of the, not holding
yeah.
hands, not kissing. That seemed a little extreme.
From a parent's perspective, just keeping your children safe in when teens are alone, you just don't know what kind of situation they can get themselves put into.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
Yep.
she does touch on
Yeah, and
getting to know their partner.
was that part of the Gothard teaching, the courtship? I know the life under the umbrella, which is the chapter 4. There's just so much. I mean, you could talk a lot about, and I think, having some familiarity, which is so odd when I read the book and I thought, wait a minute, Bill Gothard, the principal, I know this guy. So I couldn't believe, like, wait a minute, they're that guy's this movement. I didn't know it was connected like that. So I was like, man, I have more familiarity with what she was brought up in than I realized. So it was that part was interesting. That
And
part
I
was
think,
interesting.
yeah, a lot of a lot of folks that are watching this, and maybe you're thinking, well, have never heard of IBLP. Clearly, it leaked its way into mainstream Christianity.
It did, yeah,
It
especially if you were
bookstores,
Baptist too. Like if you
Yeah.
had, and you didn't have to be a fundamentalist to go into kind of the mainstream evangelical churches.
Yeah. So it's something that if you're not questioning your faith and you're not um, under a teaching with a pastor that does like expository preaching, you do have to be careful in the books that you pick up. And that's part of, I think, what we want to highlight in our book review series is even though these are mainstream popular books, how rooted is their message in actual biblical Christianity. So I am excited to finish this book. And on our next episode, I know we want to have a layout for the rest of the year. So for the month of January, February, March going on, if you guys want to pick up a book and follow along with us, I know our selections are going to be not only things that are mainstream right now, but we also want to find some books that are for a busy individual. So not just busy parents or busy moms. I think we want to try to stick with books that you can get through in a month, even when things are hectic, and then but it still be rooted in a Christian message. But just lastly, before we wrap up, in that last chapter, Life Under the Umbrella, I do want to say I thought it was really impressive that a culmination up to this point, um, she was very young when she questioned her how her family dressed. She was young when she questioned Bill Gothard's teaching. Um, I'm just kind of surprised at the maturity she had at such a young age. And it could be, like I said, I think she was exposed to a lot at a younger age. She had a lot more responsibility put on her being brought up in a family like that.
Yeah.
But I felt like that element was surprising to me. Did you feel like you got to know her a little bit more as a person reading the book up until this point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that you got a more look into, even when, this is going back a couple chapters, but that group that started this, I think it was a blog or
Oh
about
yeah,
her,
the
and they
free
were kind of
ginger.
pity or free ginger, that's it, free
Yeah.
ginger, yep. And she said they thought if this girl could break free from her family's ultra conservative rules, if she could wear what she wanted, date who she wanted, pursue the career she wanted, eat and drink what she wanted, then she would be happy. That idea that, if she should just break all the, away from all these rules, she would, be happy.
Find
And
happiness. Yeah.
what I really was like, and she, I would have been like so kind of irritated with people that were having this
Yeah.
movement, but she was like, oh, they care for me. She took that approach. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, she has a very good spirit about, this situation where people are looking on her with pity. Nobody really wants to be looked down with pity, but she was like, well, they care about me.
Yeah.
They're really genuinely concerned about
Yeah.
her and her happiness,
Yeah.
And so
Which
I
I'm
thought,
glad she brought up, because as a fan of the show, I I remember that episode where they went to New York and she was making comments about how she would love to live in a big city. And her mom, I think her mom at one point in that episode, like kind of smiled and tapped her on the back, like, and you kind of like, you got that feeling like, oh, like, well, maybe if mom approves, maybe one day. And I think that's where that started. Like, I remember that moment watching that, and I think that's probably where that was rooted, is free ginger. Like, let her pursue what she wants. Like,
right,
she was expressing this interest in big cities and photography, and I think everybody who was fans of the show hoped that she would be able to pursue the things that, because you just liked her personality. A lot of people gravitated to her, so you would hope that she was able or allowed to pursue those things. um but you're right. She had such a mature response to it. She's been able to hold all of that together and keep it in a positive light, which is very impressive. She's still young, is still a young wife and mom, and I think just continuing to watch her story is very interesting because she manages it very well.
Yep, exactly. And I just her breaking it down and going through untangling everything that she was taught through this movement, and now she's more in a reformed Calvinistic church. I think that it seems like she has a love of God and a zeal, like she says in one of the chapters, zeal for God. So, God's not going to let her go. She's had to work through, just like all of us believers have to work through some of any false teaching we may have believed, or any faults, not even teachers, but just our own thoughts. I really appreciate how she stepped through each one, talking more about the true gospel, true authority. And so I really enjoyed that last chapter, Life Under the Umbrella.
Well, it left me like I wanted to convey. Both of us are very impressed with how well written it was. It's easy, quick reading. She's done a phenomenal job with that, and her co-writer. So at the end of chapter 4, I was ready to pick up chapter 5, but for the sake of the podcast, I'm kind of holding back. I want to read the rest of the book in its entirety, and then we can come together and discuss the details of that. But we are so grateful again for all of you that have already subscribed, and we hope you continuing to enjoy watching the shorts that we post throughout the week. Again, those are just messages from R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur, folks that they're affiliated with at Grace to You Church or Ligonier Ministries. So we like to share a lot of their message in a short, so that way it is something you can listen to very quickly. Or even on your lunch break. This is something that you are able to tune into and get some of our highlights and thoughts on the book that we're covering for that month. Really enjoying that. Becoming free indeed. So please be sure to like and subscribe. Carrie, thanks for meeting before. I know our kids have some things to do this weekend, so we're going to wrap it up, but we want to thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.
Feelings, it's like